Hey, do I know you? That was the first message that appeared on Lena's phone one quiet Saturday evening. She was a 17-year-old high school senior, the kind of girl who loved art, poetry, and solitude more than parties and people. Her world was small, filled with the smell of paint, the sound of soft music, and the warmth of her best friend Hannah. That night, as she scrolled through her notifications, a text from an unknown number blinked on her screen. It seemed harmless, just another random message. But what she didn't know was that this single text would unravel her peace, her safety, and everything she thought she knew about trust. She hesitated at first, typing and deleting her reply multiple times. Finally, curiosity won. "Who is this?" she replied. The answer came instantly. "Someone who's been watching you." Her heart stopped for a moment. A cold shiver ran through her spine. She laughed nervously, thinking it must be a prank, maybe from someone at school. But there was something unsettling about the way the message appeared, like whoever sent it knew she'd see it right then. She locked her phone, trying to shake the unease, not realizing that this was only the beginning of a nightmare that would soon blur the lines between online and real life. And that's how our story begins. A story of trust, manipulation, and a digital shadow that turned a teenage girl's life into a haunting mystery. Lena's phone buzzed again that night. Another message. "Don't ignore me, Lena." Her breath caught in her throat. She hadn't told anyone her new number except her parents, Hannah, and her art club. How did this stranger know her name? She opened her curtains and peered out into the dimly lit street. Everything seemed normal, quiet, empty. Maybe it was one of her classmates trying to scare her. But the voice inside her whispered something darker. When she didn't reply, another text arrived. "I saw your painting today. The one in the hallway. You're talented." Her mind froze. That painting had been displayed in her school's art exhibition just hours ago. The only people who'd seen it were her classmates and a few teachers. Whoever was texting her had been there, watching her possibly closer than she thought. The next morning, Lena told Hannah about the texts. Hannah laughed it off. "Probably some jealous kid trying to freak you out," she said, sipping her coffee. "Just block them." But Lena didn't. Deep down, she wanted to know who it was, who had noticed her painting, who knew her number. That evening, curiosity pulled her back to her phone. "Why are you texting me?" she asked. The reply came seconds later. "Because you're different. You notice things others don't." Over the next few days, the messages continued, always soft, almost flattering. The unknown number became a strange part of her daily life. He told her he was a senior from another school nearby. He said he'd seen her at the art show and wanted to know her better. His words were warm, charming, almost poetic. Against her better judgment, Lena began to respond. The unknown voice on the other side of the screen made her feel seen, understood, special. Weeks passed. They started texting late into the night, sharing secrets and stories. Lena had never met him, but she felt connected, as if he knew her soul. She told Hannah bits and pieces, calling him Aiden, the name he'd given her. Hannah rolled her eyes, warning her to be careful, but Lena brushed it off. It felt real. Aiden made her smile in a way no one else did. She believed every word, until the night he asked her to send a picture. It wasn't a normal request. The way he said it, "I just want to see the real you," made her uneasy. She hesitated, but he guilt-tripped her gently. "You've seen my photos, haven't you? Don't you trust me?" And that word, trust, echoed like a spell. She finally sent a picture, just a simple selfie. Aiden's reply came almost instantly. "Beautiful." But something about that message didn't feel right. There was no emoji, no warmth, just that single word. And for the first time, Lena felt something new. Fear. Days turned into weeks, and Aiden became the first person Lena texted when she woke up and the last one she messaged before sleeping. He seemed perfect, always knowing the right thing to say, always online when she needed him, always listening when she vented about school or her strict parents. He remembered the smallest details, the color of her paintbrush handles, the song she hummed when nervous, even the day she'd gotten her braces off. It felt comforting, like someone was finally paying attention. But deep inside, a quiet voice whispered, how could he know so much? When Lena asked for a video call, he made excuses. Sometimes his camera was broken, sometimes he was not presentable, other times he said his Wi-Fi was too weak. But his messages always came through perfectly, no matter what. He sent her pictures, all of a tall boy with kind eyes and a crooked smile. She saved them, stared at them, even drew one of them in her sketchbook. He was like a dream she could only touch through a screen. But behind that dream, a dark truth was waiting, one that would shatter everything she believed about him. Hannah remained skeptical. One afternoon in the school cafeteria, she said, "Lena, people lie online all the time. What if he's not who he says he is?" Lena laughed nervously. "I'd know if he was lying. Would you?" Hannah pressed. "You've never even heard his voice." That night, those words echoed in Lena's mind. She texted Aiden, "I want to hear your voice." Just once. After a long pause, he replied, "Soon, I promise." That night, Lena couldn't sleep. She scrolled through their old messages, his compliments, his stories about his family, his pictures. Everything looked so real, so normal, yet something didn't fit. His stories always ended abruptly when she asked questions. When she'd mentioned meeting him at school, he'd change the topic. Once, when she said she might visit his area, he got angry, saying, "Don't, it's not safe for you." The message had felt off, but she ignored it, thinking he just cared. A few days later, Aiden texted differently. His tone changed. He was quieter, colder. "You've been talking to other guys," he accused one evening. Lena froze. "What?" "No, of course not," he replied. "I saw you at the cafe near your school. You were laughing with that boy in the red jacket." Lena's heart pounded. She had been at that cafe with her classmate Daniel, working on a group project. But she hadn't mentioned it to anyone, not even Hannah. "How did you know?" she typed. The reply came almost instantly. "I told you, I see you." The world seemed to tilt for a moment. She looked around her dark room, her reflection in the window, her silent phone screen glowing in her trembling hands. "Are you near me right now?" she whispered to herself. She typed the words slowly, deliberately. "Where are you, Aiden?" 3 dots appeared on the screen, blinking for a full minute before the reply came. "Closer than you think." Lena's stomach twisted as she stared at the glowing words on her phone screen. "Closer than you think." The room around her suddenly felt smaller, like the walls were moving in. She got up and checked her window again. Outside, the street lamps hummed faintly, casting long shadows across the pavement. No one was there. No cars, no footsteps, nothing. But she couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching her. Her fingers trembled as she texted back, "What do you mean?" There was no reply, just silence. The next morning, she walked to school with her hood up, scanning every corner. The world felt different now. The people, the buildings, even the air. She noticed a black sedan parked near the school gate, engine running. A man sat inside, but she couldn't see his face through the tinted windows. She told herself it was just a parent waiting to pick someone up, but her gut said otherwise. Inside the school hallway, she felt eyes on her. She turned, but the hall was empty. Her phone buzzed again. "That blue hoodie suits you." She froze. She was wearing a blue hoodie. Hannah grew more worried. During lunch, she leaned in, lowering her voice. "Lena, this isn't normal anymore. You need to tell someone. A teacher, your parents." "I can't," Lena whispered. "They'll think I'm overreacting." "Maybe it's still just a prank." "A prank doesn't follow you to school," Hannah said sharply. "A prank doesn't know what you're wearing." But Lena didn't reply. Her chest was tight, her throat dry. She stared at her phone, at the endless string of messages, at the smiling photos of Aiden. Was it even his real face? That evening, the texts became more possessive. "Don't talk to Daniel again," one message said. "You're mine," another read. "I'm protecting you from bad people." Lena's hand shook as she typed, "You're scaring me." The reply came instantly. "Then stop making me angry." She dropped the phone as if it burned her. Tears filled her eyes. She wanted to delete the messages, block him, throw her phone into the river. But she couldn't. Some part of her was still tied to the boy she thought she knew, to Aiden. She began noticing subtle changes. Her social media accounts showed login attempts from unknown locations. A new email arrived in her inbox with no subject line, just an attachment she didn't open. And one night, as she was walking home from the library, she heard footsteps behind her. She turned quickly. No one. She walked faster. The footsteps grew louder. Her heart pounded. She broke into a run, reaching her front door and slamming it shut. She pressed her back against the wood, trembling. Her phone buzzed. You shouldn't walk alone at night. That was the moment Lena's fear turned into dread. This wasn't just an online game anymore. Someone was following her. Someone who knew her routines, her friends, her weaknesses. The unknown number wasn't a stranger on the screen. It was someone in her world, breathing the same air, watching her every move. And she realized, with a sinking feeling, that she might already be too deep to escape. That night, Lena couldn't sleep. The shadows in her room felt alive, whispering secrets in the silence. She deleted Aiden's messages, blocked his number, and uninstalled every social app she had. For the first time in weeks, her phone was quiet. The silence felt heavy but safe. She promised herself she'd tell her parents the next morning. But morning came, and she couldn't. How could she explain that the boy she'd trusted had become her worst nightmare? She didn't even know who he was. Shame crept in like poison. She blamed herself for ever replying, for ever sending that selfie, for ever believing the lies. At school, she tried to act normal. She sat with Hannah, laughed at jokes, and pretended she was fine. But something inside her had cracked. Every vibration from her phone made her flinch. During art class, she caught a reflection in the window. A man standing across the street, facing the school building. His posture was still, too still, like he was watching. When she blinked, he was gone. Maybe her mind was playing tricks. Maybe fear had finally started painting its own ghosts. But the unease stayed. That evening, she got an email from a new address. The subject line said, "You can't block me, Lena." Her heart skipped a beat. Hands trembling, she opened it. Inside was a single sentence. "You shouldn't have deleted me." Attached below was the same photo she had sent him, but edited. Her eyes in the photo had been darkened, replaced by black voids. Beneath the image, 2 words were written in red text. "Mine forever," Lena screamed, dropping her phone. She rushed to her mother, sobbing, telling her everything. The texts, the stalking, the picture. Her mother's face went pale. They contacted the police that night. Officers took her statement, promised to investigate, but their tone was routine. "It's probably someone from school trying to scare you," one said. "We'll trace the number." Days passed, but nothing changed. The messages stopped for a while, but the silence was worse. Every corner felt haunted. Lena started noticing missing things: her sketchbook, a bracelet from her locker, a note she had left on her desk. Someone had been there. One morning, she found a small envelope under her windshield wiper. Inside was a printed photo, her walking home, looking down at her phone. The caption beneath read, "You're prettier when you're scared." Her world began collapsing. She stopped going out, stopped talking to people, and kept her blinds closed. Even Hannah had started receiving strange messages, ones that said, "She's mine, not yours." The police tried to track the IP addresses, but they were rerouted through multiple fake accounts. Whoever this was, they knew how to hide. Aiden had become a ghost, haunting her from every direction. One night, her mom came into her room quietly and sat beside her. "We'll get through this," she whispered, brushing Lena's hair from her face. But Lena's eyes were hollow, staring at the window. "Mom," she said softly, "what if he's already inside the house?" Her mother froze. They both turned toward the half-open closet door. For a second, they saw nothing, until Lena's phone, lying on the bed, buzzed again. "I like your room." Her mother snatched the phone from the bed and stared at the message. "I like your room." For a second, both stood frozen, unable to breathe. Then her mother moved fast, locking the windows, checking the doors, calling the police with shaking hands. Lena sat still on the edge of her bed, staring at the closet. The air felt thick, heavy. The closet door was slightly ajar, revealing only darkness. She wanted to believe her eyes were playing tricks, but something inside her told her otherwise. She slowly stood, heart hammering, and reached out with trembling fingers to push the door open. Nothing, empty. But as she turned away, she noticed it. The faint smell of cologne she didn't recognize. When the police arrived, they searched the house but found no signs of forced entry. One officer asked if anyone else had keys, relatives, friends, neighbors. Lena's mother said no. They advised her to install security cameras and change all the locks. "It's probably a hacker trying to scare you," they said again, their voices calm but dismissive. But Lena knew better. This wasn't just someone online. This was someone who had been inside. The thought made her stomach twist in fear. That night, she refused to sleep in her room. She stayed in the living room with her mother. the TV playing softly to fill the silence. But every creak, every sound of the wind outside made her jump. Her phone was turned off, but the fear didn't stop. When she finally closed her eyes near dawn, her mother woke her with a gasp. The front door was slightly open. The police had locked it when they left. Someone had been there, again. On the doormat, there was a single rose and a note. It said, "You shouldn't ignore me." By morning, the entire house was in chaos. Her father returned from his business trip and installed cameras around the property. They moved Lena's bed into her parents' room. The police increased patrols in the neighborhood. For a short while, it felt like things were calming down. Days passed without messages, and Lena started hoping maybe it was over. But fear had changed her. She stopped painting, stopped smiling. Even her friends noticed. Hannah came over often, trying to bring back a piece of the old Lena, but she was fading. Trapped between paranoia and exhaustion, one evening, Lena received a message from an unknown social media profile. No picture, no name. The message read, "You think cameras will save you?" She screamed, dropping the phone. Her father rushed to the monitor feed, scanning the cameras. The footage showed nothing but shadows, swaying trees, and the reflection of headlights passing by. But then, just before midnight, the system glitched. For 2 seconds, static filled the screen, and then a face appeared. A man wearing a black hoodie, standing directly in front of the camera, staring into the lens with a faint smile. His face was partly hidden, but his eyes, they were the same blue as the boy in the pictures Aiden had sent her. Lena's father called the police again, furious. But when they reviewed the footage, the face was gone, the file corrupted. They promised to assign a detective to the case, but it felt like too little, too late. Lena realized something horrifying. Whoever Aiden was, he wasn't just hiding behind screens anymore. He had crossed the line between the digital and the real, and now he was everywhere, watching, waiting, closer than ever. Detective Warren arrived 2 days later, calm, steady, with the kind of expression that said he'd seen worse but still cared. He sat across from Lena in the living room, notebook open, voice low and careful. "Tell me everything," he said. And she did, from the first text to the last note on her doorstep. She showed him the emails, the photo, even the corrupted video file. He studied each detail, his brow furrowed. "Whoever this is," he finally said, "they're not random. They know you. They know your schedule, your friends, your habits. This isn't just obsession. It's personal." Those words hit harder than any threat she'd received. Someone from her world, her school, her neighborhood, was behind it. Detective Warren requested the school's permission to check student records and security camera footage from the art show where Lena's painting had been displayed. He believed the stalker might have started watching her that day. When the footage came in, he and Lena sat together, scanning through faces. For a long time, everything looked normal. Students laughing, teachers chatting, until Lena froze. There, in the corner of the frame, a boy stood watching her painting. He wasn't smiling or talking. He just stared. When the camera zoomed slightly, Lena's stomach dropped. He was wearing the same jacket as in the photos Aiden had sent her. The detective ran the image through school records. No match. They checked nearby schools and still nothing. The photo, he said, might have been stolen online, used by someone else to build a fake identity. "So, I was never talking to him?" Lena whispered. "Not even once?" Warren nodded slowly. "Whoever was texting you probably used someone else's pictures. But the person watching you, that's someone real." That night, Lena sat in her room staring at her sketchbook. She flipped through pages filled with drawings of Aiden's face, the same face she now knew belonged to a stranger. It felt like losing someone who had never existed. Her chest ached, not just with fear, but betrayal. She picked up her pencil and began to draw again. But this time she drew his eyes as she remembered them from the camera footage. Hidden, cold, lifeless. And at the bottom of the page, she wrote 3 words. "Who are you?" Meanwhile, Detective Warren's search deepened. The number that had messaged her was traced to a disposable SIM card bought from a small kiosk near the school. The CCTV from that store showed a tall man wearing a hoodie, face hidden, paying in cash. No fingerprints, no ID. But the clerk remembered one detail. "He talked strange," the clerk said, like he was trying to sound younger than he was. That detail sent a chill through the detective's spine. The man pretending to be a teenage boy wasn't one. The next morning, as Lena walked downstairs, she noticed her front door slightly open again. A folded piece of paper lay on the floor. Her heart began to pound as she bent down to pick it up. Inside, written in shaky letters, were the words, "You shouldn't have brought him into this." And beneath it, taped to the paper, was a USB drive. The detective took it immediately, plugging it into his secure laptop. The screen showed a single folder titled Memories. Inside were dozens of pictures of Lena. Some at school, some in her yard, some taken from outside her window. The timestamp stretched back months before the first text. The realization hit like a thunderclap. He'd been watching her long before she ever knew he existed. Detective Warren spent the next 48 hours analyzing the USB drive. Most files were harmless, zoomed-in photos of Lena walking to class, leaving the library, or sitting by her bedroom window. But a few were taken from disturbing angles, clearly from inside the house. That was what terrified everyone most. Someone had been in their home, multiple times. The detective ordered a full forensic sweep, checking every inch of the property. And that's when they found it. A small hidden camera inside the air vent of Lena's room. It was tiny, no larger than a thumb drive, positioned perfectly toward her bed. Her mother broke down in tears while her father stood frozen in silent rage. Lena just stared, numb, unable to process the violation. The camera contained a small SD card. When the footage was extracted, Warren's hands clenched. The clips showed Lena sleeping, reading, painting, ordinary, innocent moments, all filmed from the shadows. But in one video, taken late at night, the closet door in the frame moved slightly. A figure appeared, wearing black, face covered by a hood. He stepped into the dim light, stood for a moment, and then turned directly toward the hidden lens, as if he knew it was there. He raised his finger to his lips, signaling silence. Then the video cut off. It was a message, a warning, or a game. The detective worked with cybercrime specialists to track the digital footprint linked to the files. Slowly, a pattern emerged. The data had been uploaded from a nearby Wi-Fi network belonging to a former maintenance worker who had once worked at Lena's school. His name was Ethan Cole. He had left the job months ago after personal issues, according to the principal. Warren ran his background. What he found turned his stomach. Ethan had been investigated years earlier for stalking a student in another town, but had disappeared before the case went to court. Now he was back, hiding behind a fake name and teenage photos, pretending to be Aiden. When the detective told Lena and her parents, silence filled the room. Her mother's hands trembled as she whispered, he was near her every day. The realization was unbearable. Ethan had used his access to the school to learn about Lena, her schedule, her friends, her number. The catfish wasn't some faceless hacker. He was a man in his 30s who had built a digital mask to get close to a teenage girl. The horror wasn't in the messages anymore. It was in the betrayal of safety, of a world where every smile could hide a lie. That night, Lena couldn't stay in the house. They moved temporarily to her aunt's home, under police protection. Every sound felt like footsteps, every flicker of light like eyes watching. The detective promised they'd find Ethan soon, but promises didn't erase fear. Lena felt stripped of trust, haunted not by the man's face, but by her own reflection, by the thought that she had let a monster in through her own phone screen. 3 days later, Ethan's car was found abandoned near an old factory on the outskirts of town. Inside was his phone, smashed and burned. The detective knew he was close, hiding somewhere nearby, still watching, still playing his game. And that night, as Lena sat at her aunt's kitchen table, her new phone, one no one had the number for, buzzed once. Message from unknown number. Miss me? The sound of the notification sliced through the quiet kitchen like a blade. Lena's hands trembled as she stared at the message. Miss me? The room seemed to tilt. She looked around. Her mother in the next room, the faint hum of the refrigerator filling the silence. Slowly, she picked up her phone, her pulse thundering in her ears. Detective Warren, she whispered into the phone. He's back. Within minutes, 2 patrol cars arrived outside. But the messages didn't stop. Another pinged. You can move houses, change numbers, change locks, but you can't erase me. The words crawled under her skin like venom. Warren arrived half an hour later. He scanned the message logs, his jaw tightening. He's taunting us, he muttered. He wants you scared. He's feeding off that. He placed a tracker on her new phone, setting up signal tracing in real time. But every message came through from a different route, bouncing off multiple fake networks. Ethan knew the system too well. He wasn't just a predator. He was patient, calculating, and enjoying every second of the chaos he caused. "Don't respond to him," Warren said. "Let us handle it." But later that night, Lena couldn't stop herself. She typed back, "Why are you doing this to me?" The reply came within seconds. "Because you saw me when no one else did." Her heart twisted in disgust. She didn't understand. How could someone twist affection into something so dark? "You don't love me," she wrote, her fingers shaking. "You're sick." The reply came colder this time. "You don't get to decide that." And then silence. No more messages. For hours, the phone stayed still, but Lena couldn't shake the feeling that he was watching her through the dark window pane. She turned off the lights and sat by her bed, her breath shallow. Somewhere outside, a dog barked. Then, a shadow moved near the fence. She rushed to her mother's room, whispering frantically that someone was outside. Her father called the police again while Warren's team checked the cameras remotely. The feed flickered, and there he was, Ethan, standing by the edge of the yard, half hidden behind a tree, his hood drawn, his gaze fixed directly at the camera. He wasn't trying to hide anymore. He wanted her to see him, wanted her to know he was close. "Stay inside," Warren barked over the phone. "Officers are on their way." But when they arrived, the yard was empty. Only muddy footprints remained near the fence, footprints leading toward the woods. The following day, Lena could barely function. Every sound made her flinch, every person looked suspicious. School was out of the question now. She stayed home under watch. But the messages returned that night. Not texts this time, but photos. The first showed her sitting at the kitchen table earlier that day. The second, her parents asleep on the couch. The third, her, right now, standing by the window holding her phone. She gasped and backed away. He was out there, right now, watching. The police were called again, sirens piercing the night, lights flashing across the yard. But Ethan had disappeared, like a ghost swallowed by darkness. Warren stared at the photos, his expression grim. "He's escalating," he said quietly. "He doesn't just want to scare you anymore. He wants control." Lena felt a tear slip down her cheek. "Why me?" she whispered. The detective hesitated before answering. "Because you trusted him, and now he thinks that means he owns you." Those words broke something inside her, the last illusion of safety she had. She realized Ethan wasn't just in her phone or her yard. He was in her mind, shaping her fear with every breath she took. And she knew, deep down, that this would only end when one of them stopped hiding. By the next morning, something in Lena had changed. Fear had burned so deeply inside her that it no longer felt like panic. It felt like resolve. She looked at the walls of the house, the cameras, the police cars outside, and realized something chilling. None of it mattered if she kept running. Ethan wasn't just stalking her. He was controlling her life. She could feel him even when he wasn't there. She couldn't paint, couldn't sleep, couldn't breathe without wondering if he was watching. And so she made a choice, one that scared even the detective when he heard it. She wanted to bait him. "Let me talk to him again," she said, her voice steady. "Let me end this." Detective Warren shook his head. "No, you're not trained for this. He's unpredictable." "I know," Lena said, meeting his gaze. "But he's obsessed with me, not you. He'll only come out if I make him believe he's winning." Warren hesitated, then finally agreed, with conditions. She would have officers stationed outside, live tracking, and the team ready to intervene the moment Ethan made contact. It was risky, but Lena was done living in fear. That night, she reopened the messaging app she had sworn never to touch again and sent a message to the unknown number. "You were right. I can't escape you." Hours passed. Then her phone buzzed. "I knew you'd come back." Her hands shook as she typed. "I miss you." A pause. Then, "Prove it. Meet me." Lena's breath caught. She glanced at Detective Warren, who nodded grimly. "Ask where," he whispered. She did. The reply came almost instantly. The old factory. Midnight. The same place where his car had been found. Warren's team prepared silently. 2 cars, 4 officers, full surveillance gear. Lena would wear a wire. Every instinct screamed at her not to go, but this was the only way. The only chance to end it. As midnight approached, the night air felt heavier than ever. The factory loomed ahead, abandoned and hollow, with broken windows and walls covered in graffiti. The wind howled through the cracks, echoing like voices from the past. Lena walked slowly inside, her flashlight cutting through the dust. Her heart pounded in her chest. "Ethan," she called softly. No answer. She took a few more steps, her footsteps echoing. Then her phone vibrated. A new message. "You look even more beautiful in the dark." Her breath hitched. "He's watching," she whispered into the mic. The officers moved in, circling the perimeter. But before they could locate him, a sound echoed, the creak of metal behind her. She spun around. A tall figure stepped out from the shadows, wearing the same black hoodie, his face hidden. "I told you we'd meet," he said softly. His voice wasn't the voice of a teenager. It was deeper, older, colder. "You shouldn't have brought them here," he added. Then the lights cut out. Total darkness. Lena screamed, stumbling backward, the flashlight slipping from her hands. The officers shouted her name through their radios, rushing in. But Ethan moved fast, vanishing into the maze of the factory. They chased after him, flashlights slicing through the dark. A loud crash echoed, then silence. When the lights finally flickered back on, Ethan was gone, leaving behind only a single message written on the dusty wall. "You can't hide forever." Lena collapsed into Warren's arms, shaking uncontrollably. The trap had worked, partly. They had confirmed Ethan was alive, real and close. But he had escaped again, slipping into the night like smoke. And as the detective escorted her out of the factory, he knew this wasn't over. The hunter had become desperate, and desperation was the most dangerous weapon of all. The following weeks passed in a blur of sleepless nights and endless questioning. The police increased patrols, the school added security, and Lena's name became a whisper in the hallways. The girl with the stalker, the catfish victim, the one who barely made it out alive. Every time her phone buzzed, she froze. But silence had its own kind of terror. It meant he was planning, watching, waiting. The detective told her to move on. But how do you move on from someone who's still out there? Someone who knows every secret, every fear, every place you call home? Lena started journaling, trying to reclaim her own story. But one night, as she opened her notebook, a folded paper fell out, one that hadn't been there before. Her hands trembled as she unfolded it. It was a printed photo, her, walking home from therapy 2 days ago. On the back a message, "Missed me?" The room spun. She screamed for her parents, who called the police immediately. But by the time they arrived, the street cameras had already been looped, all footage erased. Ethan had been right there, close enough to slip something into her bag, close enough to breathe the same air, and yet invisible. Warren looked at the note under the evidence light, his face pale. "He's not stopping," he said quietly. "He's evolving." The team began digging deeper into the dark web again, tracing every old forum, every signal that could link back to Ethan. And that's when they found something. A clue no one expected. A post, time-stamped an hour before the photo appeared in her bag. Username, "Ethan was here." The post read, "You think I'm one person? I'm not. We are many." Below it, hundreds of comments, all with different usernames, but the same eerie message. "We see you, Lena." The realization hit like a punch. Ethan wasn't a single predator anymore. He had built a network. A cult of copycats and voyeurs who watched, followed, and hunted together. The investigation exploded overnight. News outlets picked up the story, parents panicked, schools went on alert. But for Lena, it wasn't about headlines anymore. It was about survival. A week later, her family packed up and left town quietly. No announcements, no forwarding address. Warren personally oversaw the move. "New city, new school, new number," he said. "This time we make sure he can't find you." Lena nodded silently, clutching her phone, the same phone that had brought both love and terror into her life. She wanted to throw it out the car window, but she couldn't. It was her link to everything that had happened, her reminder of how fragile trust could be. The drive was long, the silence heavy. Somewhere along the road she drifted into uneasy sleep. When she woke up, the car had stopped. Her parents were inside a gas station. She reached for her phone to check the time, but the screen was already on. A new notification. One single text, "Nice try." Her stomach dropped. The sender's number wasn't saved, yet her phone displayed a contact name she had never entered. Ethan, online. Her blood ran cold. The GPS icon blinked at the top of the screen. He knew where they were. She screamed for her parents as the phone slipped from her hand, landing on the car floor. The detective's voice echoed in her mind. He wants control. And she realized maybe she could take it back. Heart pounding, she picked up the phone and typed her final message, "You don't own me anymore." Then she hurled the phone onto the asphalt, watching it shatter beneath the car's tires. Her mother rushed back, terrified, but Lena didn't explain. She didn't have to. She knew Ethan would see that broken screen as defiance, the one thing he couldn't manipulate. For the first time in months, she breathed freely. The road ahead looked endless, uncertain, but finally hers. Yet miles away, inside a dimly lit room filled with monitors, a man watched the broken phone notification appear on his screen. A slow smile crept across his face. Then, he opened a new chat window. "Hi, Emily. You seem lonely." Sometimes, evil doesn't hide behind monsters. It hides behind a smile, a username, and a good morning text. Lena's story is a warning for anyone who thinks they truly know the person behind the screen. Trust is a weapon in the wrong hands. An obsession never ends with love. What would you do if your phone buzzed right now? And the message said, "Miss me?" If this story sent chills down your spine, don't forget to subscribe for more real-life inspired mysteries and psychological thrillers. Because the next story might be about someone you know. Until next time, stay safe, stay alert, and never trust the unknown.